What does it mean to have lived your whole life inside your own imagination? To have walked the streets of a great city for 8 years without making a single friend? To have known the buildings better than the people? To have fallen in love, not with a woman, but with a dream of one? Fyodor Dostoyevsky wrote White Nights in 1848. He was 26 years old. The following year he was arrested, sentenced to death, brought to the execution ground, and at the very last moment reprieved and sent to Siberia instead. He wrote this story on the edge of that darkness. And it shows. White Nights is one of the shortest and most devastating love stories in all of literature. It takes place over 4 nights in St. Petersburg, for white nights of the Russian summer when the sky barely darkens. A lonely, unnamed dreamer meets a girl on an embankment. They talk. They walk. They begin to open their hearts to each other. And then, in the way that real life operates, with neither cruelty nor mercy but simply with indifference to what we need, everything ends. Welcome to Wisdom Reads. We are going deep today into Dostoyevsky's White Nights, a novella so precise and so honest about the human heart that reading it can feel like being seen by someone who has no business knowing you so well. 11 themes. Let us begin. The Dreamer. Dostoyevsky introduces us to his narrator, a man he calls simply a dreamer, with one of the most compassionate and heartbreaking portraits of loneliness ever committed to the page. The dreamer has lived in St. Petersburg for 8 years. He has no friends. He has no acquaintances in the ordinary sense. What he has instead are the buildings he passes every day, which he has come to know so intimately that they feel like companions. He knows which house is about to be repaired. He grieves when a pink building he loved is painted yellow. He is not insane. He is simply, and profoundly, alone. And in his aloneness he has developed an entire inner life of extraordinary richness. He lives inside his imagination. He falls in love with women he has never met. He constructs entire lives in his dreams, lives with passion and friendship and meaning, and he lives inside those dreams more fully than he lives in the world outside his window. Dostoyevsky does not mock him for this. He does not diagnose him. He simply shows us what a life like this feels like from the inside, the warmth of it, and the cold. And then one night the dreamer steps outside and hears a woman crying on the embankment. The first night. It is a white night in St. Petersburg. The sky is bright and starry even though it is late. The dreamer is walking along the canal embankment, singing to himself, because, as he tells us, when he is happy he always hums something, like every happy man who has no one with whom to share his joy. He sees a woman leaning against the railing of the canal. She is weeping. The dreamer is terrified of women. He has spent 8 years avoiding genuine human contact, and now, in the space of a moment, his entire careful distance from the world is undone by the sound of someone crying. He tries to walk past. He cannot. He turns back. What follows is one of the most gentle first meetings in literature. He helps her escape a drunk man who is following her. She takes his arm. They walk. They talk with the careful, tentative honesty of 2 people who are both so starved for genuine connection that they do not know how to pretend they are not. Her name is Nastenka. She is 17 years old. She has spent the last 2 years pinned, literally pinned, to her blind grandmother's dress as a punishment for misbehaving. She has been a prisoner of love and obligation simultaneously, unable to go anywhere, see anyone, experience anything beyond the 4 walls of their small house. And yet she is not broken. She is warm and quick and laughing. She takes the dreamer in immediately, not because she is naive but because she recognizes something in him. 2 people who have been alone in different ways, meeting on an embankment in the white night. She tells him not to fall in love with her. She already loves someone else. She says it plainly and kindly. And he agrees. And they shake hands on it. The dreamer walks home unable to sleep. He has been happy, he says, for 2 whole evenings of his life. That is the measure of his world. The life of a dreamer. In the second night, the dreamer tells Nastenka what he is. And Dostoyevsky gives him a speech that I believe is one of the most honest self-portraits of a certain kind of human being that literature has ever produced. A dreamer, he says, is not quite a man. He lives in an inaccessible corner, like a snail in its shell, emerging rarely and reluctantly into the real world. What he does instead is construct entire lives inside his imagination. He falls in love in his dreams. He has adventures. He suffers and triumphs and mourns and celebrates, all without leaving his room, all without another living person being present. And the tragedy is not that this life is empty. The tragedy is that it is so full, so warm, so vivid, that when the dream dissolves, as it always does, it leaves behind not emptiness but a specific, terrible kind of grief. The grief of losing something that never existed. Dostoyevsky writes, "The hour will strike when, for a single day of this pitiful life, he would give up all of his fantastic years, and not even for joy, not even for happiness. Just for a single real day." The danger of living inside your head is not that it makes you less intelligent or less capable or less worthy of love. The danger is that it becomes so comfortable, and the real world so terrifying by comparison, that you stop trying. You let the years pass. You let the real life you could have had dissolve into the dreams of the life you would rather imagine having. And then one day you look up and the years are gone. And you are still in your corner. And the dreams have grown thinner. And the grief of losing what never was is indistinguishable from the grief of losing what could have been. This is the dreamer's confession. And Nastenka listens. And she does not laugh. She simply says, "Can you really have lived your whole life like that?" "Yes," he says. "My whole life. And I believe that is how I will end my days." Nastenka's story. In return for the dreamer's confession, Nastenka tells him hers. She has lived all her life with her blind grandmother. For 2 years she has been pinned to the old woman's dress, a pin through her skirt and the grandmother's, so that she cannot wander or get into mischief. She reads aloud to her grandmother. She knits. She sits. She waits. And then a lodger moves into the attic room of their little house. He is young. He is kind. He brings them books, Walter Scott, then Pushkin. He invites them to the opera. He and Nastenka exchange small, careful words on the staircase. And over the course of a year, in the most constrained and tender circumstances imaginable, Nastenka falls completely in love with him. The lodger must leave for Moscow. He will be gone for a year. On the last night before his departure, Nastenka does something extraordinary. She gathers her dresses into a bundle. She carries them to his door at midnight. She tells him she wants to come with him. He is not unkind. But he cannot take her. He does not have money. He does not have a position. He cannot promise marriage. What he promises instead is this: when I return in a year, if you still love me, we will be together. I swear it. And Nastenka believes him. And she waits. A year passes. The lodger returns to St. Petersburg. 3 days go by. He does not come to her. He does not write. And so Nastenka, on the embankment canal on the third night of his return, is leaning against the railing, weeping, when the dreamer walks past and hears her. This is what love costs when the object of it does not know what it is worth. It costs 3 days of silence that feel like a lifetime. It costs a girl on a canal embankment in the white night, weeping while the rest of the city pretends not to notice. The letter. The dreamer decides to help. He helps Nastenka compose a letter to the lodger. He writes it with her, or rather, for her, because she does not know how to say what she needs to say without either demanding too much or offering too little. The letter they compose together is one of the most dignified and heartbreaking pieces of writing in the novella. It says, "I am writing to you. Forgive my impatience, but for a whole year hope alone has made me happy. Am I to blame that I cannot now bear even a day of doubt?" It says, "You are a noble person. You will not laugh and will not be annoyed at my impatient lines. Remember that they are written by a poor girl who is alone, who has no one to teach her, and who has never been able to control her heart. The dreamer delivers the letter. He waits for the reply. And while he waits, in those 2 days between the letter being sent and the answer arriving, something happens inside him that he cannot quite name and cannot quite control. He is falling in love with Nastenka. He has been falling since the first night. He promised he would not. He made the promise easily and sincerely because he did not yet know what those evenings on the embankment would cost him. But here is what Dostoyevsky understands about love that most writers pretend not to know. Love does not ask permission. It does not wait for a convenient moment. It does not respect the promises you made before it arrived. It simply comes, and it changes everything, and it leaves you responsible for a feeling you never chose and cannot undo. The dreamer carries the letter. He waits for the answer. And every hour he waits, the love grows larger and more impossible and more real. This is hope, fragile, beautiful, already slightly broken at the edges. The kind of hope that knows, somewhere in its foundations, that it is built on uncertain ground. And keeps building anyway. The third night. On the third night, the lodger has not come. No reply to the letter has arrived. And Nastenka and the dreamer walk together again in the white night, and something shifts between them. She tells him she loves him. Not the way she loves the lodger, she is honest about that, achingly honest. But she loves him the way you love someone who has made you feel that you matter. Someone who listened. Someone who helped you find the words for what your heart was trying to say and then carried those words for you without asking for anything in return. The dreamer is overwhelmed. He knows what this is. He knows what it is not. He knows that her love for the lodger is real and deep and long, and that what she feels for him, the dreamer, is real too, but different in kind. And he does not know what to do with the difference. Dostoyevsky says something through the dreamer's silence that I believe is one of the truest things in the novella. Love is not a single thing. It is not one experience that either exists or does not. There is the love that has years behind it and a specific face and a specific voice and a specific smell and a specific place on a staircase where two people first exchanged careful words. And there is the love that arrives in 4 nights on an embankment and is made of nothing but honesty and kindness and the peculiar intimacy of 2 lonely people who have, for the first time, stopped being lonely together. Both are real. Both matter. But they are not the same. And the dreamer, who has spent his life in dreams, understands this with a clarity that is almost unbearable. He walks home that night knowing that he loves her. Knowing she loves the other man. Knowing that tomorrow will bring an answer one way or another. And sitting inside that knowledge, neither hope nor despair, but something between them, the way the Russian night in summer is neither day nor dark but something between them. The 4th night. On the 4th night, the dreamer can no longer keep the secret. He has tried. He made a promise. He delivered a letter on behalf of a woman he loves to a man he has never met, and waited for the reply with a heart that was tearing itself apart at the seams. And on the 4th night, with still no answer from the lodger, Nastenka weeping on the bench, asking him whether she was right to have loved, whether she was foolish. Whether she deserved to be abandoned like this, on the 4th night the dreamer finally speaks. He says, "Nastenka, I cannot remain silent any longer. What I am about to say is nonsense. It is impossible. I know it can never happen. But I love you." And then he waits. Nastenka looks at him. She does not laugh. She does not pull away. She says, "I knew it. I always knew it. I simply thought you loved me differently." And then she says something that breaks the dreamer's heart and repairs it simultaneously. She says, "If he has truly abandoned me, if this really is the end, then perhaps my love for him was never quite what I thought it was. Perhaps it was always partly the longing of a girl who has been trapped for 2 years by a grandmother's pin and a small house and no window onto the world. And perhaps what I feel for you, the dreamer, the man who listened, the man who helped me find my words, perhaps that is something I should not dismiss." She does not tell him she loves him the way she loves the lodger. She is honest to the end. But she holds his hand. And they walk. And for one extraordinary hour in the white night of St. Petersburg they talk about sharing a life together, where they will live, what they will do, how they will bring her grandmother along, how the two maids will get along. It is the most ordinary and the most beautiful conversation in the world. Two people imagining a future. Two lonely people, briefly not lonely. 1 hour of pure, uncomplicated happiness. The ending. They are still walking, still talking about their imagined future, when a young man walks toward them on the embankment. Nastenka's hand tightens on the dreamer's arm. And then she loosens it. And then she tears herself away entirely and runs to the young man and throws herself into his arms. The lodger has come. The dreamer stands on the embankment and watches. He cannot move. He watches her throw herself into the arms of the man she has waited a year for, the man she climbed a staircase at midnight to confess her love to, the man she carried a bundle of dresses to and then returned home from with nothing but a promise. And then, before she disappears into the darkness with him, Nastenka turns back. She runs to the dreamer. She throws her arms around his neck. She kisses him firmly, ardently. She presses her face against his. And then she takes the lodger's hand and they walk away together into the white night. The dreamer watches until they vanish. A letter arrives the next morning. From Nastenka. It says, "Forgive me, forgive me, forgive me." It says, "I deceive both you and myself." It says, "Do not think that I have changed toward you, I love you now as I loved you then. But I love him more. Or differently. Or first." It says, "When you see me, you will give me your hand, will you not?" And then the dreamer puts the letter down and covers his face with his hands. And then he writes the last words of the novella, words that Dostoyevsky placed at the end with the precision of a man who knew exactly where the knife should go. My God! A whole minute of bliss. Is that really so little for the whole of a man's life? That line has lived in me since the first time I read it. The question it asks is not rhetorical. It is the most sincere question in the story. Is a minute of bliss enough? Is it enough to carry a life? Is 1 real hour of genuine happiness sufficient compensation for years of loneliness before it and years of loneliness after it? Dostoyevsky does not answer. He simply asks, and leaves you to sit with the question and the silence. 11 themes from one novella. But they all converge on a single truth that Dostoyevsky embedded in every sentence of White Nights. The longing to be known is the deepest longing in a human life. Not to be admired. Not to be desired. Not to be useful or impressive or remembered. To be known. To have someone sit with you on an embankment in the white night and ask the right questions and listen to the answers and not leave. The dreamer has everything inside him. He has imagination and feeling and warmth and kindness and the capacity for love that would make most people's hearts seem small by comparison. What he lacks is the bridge between that inner world and the outer one. The ability to cross from the dream into the real. The courage, or perhaps simply the opportunity, to let someone in before the white nights end. Nastenka gives him that, for 4 nights. And it is real. What happens between them is not a fantasy or a consolation or a substitute for the real thing. It is the real thing. Brief and incomplete and ending in loss, but real. And the dreamer, in his final line, does not curse the brevity. He does not rage against the ending. He simply asks whether 1 minute of bliss was enough. And in the asking, in that extraordinary, heartbroken, open question, he reveals something that Dostoyevsky believed with everything he had. That to have loved, even briefly, even without return, even at cost, is better than to have stayed safely in the dream. That the minute of bliss on the embankment, the hour of imagining a future that never came, the kiss pressed against his face before she ran back to the man she loved, that these things were worth the grief that followed them. Not because grief is good, but because the alternative is a life in which nothing real ever happens. A life of beautiful, elaborate, perfectly controlled dreams, and not a single minute of bliss. If this story reached something in you today, if the dreamer's question is still sitting in your chest, carry it with you. Let it ask you something about your own life and your own loneliness and your own capacity to step out of the dream and onto the embankment. The full written guide, The Most Powerful Themes from White Nights, beautifully designed with reflections and journaling space, is linked in the description. It is part of the Wisdom Read series. And subscribe if you want more of this. One book. One story. The full depth. Every week. Until next time, step outside. Let the white night find you. And if you hear someone crying on the embankment, stop.